This is the world's first 500-watt GaN desktop charger, the UGREEN Nexode. It's large, it's heavy, it's powerful, and believe it or not, it's actually efficient too. If you need maximum power to a single device, it's got you covered with 240 watts ready to go to a single port. Or if you've got a ton of devices in need of charging, once again, you're all good, since this thing can fast charge not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 different laptops all at the same time. This charger truly provides all the USB power you could possibly need for your desk or to create a central charging hub for you, your family, or your team. Now, UGREEN sent this absolute beast over to me for a review, but had no say in how I decided to cover it. I've got all the details for you here, plus affiliate links in the video description if you decide you want one. And now let's jump into the details. This charger is crazy. There are 6 ports total, 5 USB-C and 1 USB-A. The top port supports power delivery 3.1 and can provide up to 240 watts of power. The remaining 4 USB-Cs can each do 100 watts, and the USB-A at the bottom can do 20 watts. You could definitely argue that the USB-A port isn't super necessary these days, but I like the fact that it's here for that one older device that we all have that still requires USB-A. Eventually though, I think we'll see that drop off of future models, but for right now, I still think it makes sense. The 6 ports on this charger each have their own dedicated GaN chips, specifically an upgraded chip in this model that UGREEN is calling GaNInfinity. GaN is short for gallium nitride, which is used in place of silicon, as it can enable chargers like this to be smaller. Yes, believe it or not, this is smaller. It can also be more power efficient while still being capable of extremely high performance. Specifically, UGREEN is claiming these new GaN chips only lose 5% of their energy to heat. That is extremely impressive. We'll see if that holds up in our testing later in the video. As you load up more ports, the charger will automatically adjust to balance the load. The truly remarkable thing here though is that even if you load up all 6 ports, you can still get the full 240 watts to that top port. On most other chargers like this that I've seen, as soon as you start to load them up, your high-end capabilities immediately drop off. If you do wind up using all 6 ports, in addition to that 240 watts on the top port, you get a respectable 60 watts from the other 4 USB-Cs and 20 watts from the USB-A, which gets you to that maximum of 500 watts. If you want to get really detailed on the website and also in a pamphlet in the box, you'll see the exact detailed breakdown of which port gets what amount of power in different configurations. The only thing you really need to remember though is to put more power-hungry devices on top, and it's also helpful that they happen to be labeled as well. Now, if 500 watts seems like overkill for your needs, UGREEN also sells a 300 watt model with one less port that caps out at 140 watts instead of 240 watts, and an even smaller 200 watt model, which can get up to 100 watts to a single port. I'll provide affiliate links to each of these models in the video description. I'll also throw in a link to this video evaluating UGREEN USB-C cables, which would go great with this charger specifically, since they can handle all the way up to that full 240 watts that the top port is capable of. For form factor, this charging hub is beautiful but hefty. It stands at 4.8 inches tall, 2.4 inches wide, and 5.9 inches deep. It weighs in at 1,600 grams or about 3.5 pounds. So yeah, this thing is solid. The entire body is made of plastic, but it still feels very high quality. On the bottom sit some rubber pads to cushion against the heavy weight. It's only available in this classic black and dark silver color, which matches nicely with other products across UGREEN's lineup. Again, the crazy thing is that with GaN, this thing is actually small for its capability. I know it is huge, but it could be so much worse. Did any of you watch my Logi dock video? Let's flash up that monstrosity on the screen. That power adapter is less than half the power of this UGREEN one, just 230 watts. In that context, this thing is pretty impressive. The power input comes via a 2-meter long power cable to the power port at the back of the device. It's a nice quality cable that's necessary when you're dealing with this much power, and I'm very happy to see the long 2-meter size so that you can get this positioned exactly where you want it. Moving on to heat management and sound, there is nothing to say but wow. The results of my tests were insane. I loaded this thing up with a MacBook Pro, a MacBook Air, a Dell XPS laptop, a JBL Charge 6 speaker, a Beats Pill speaker, and an iPhone 13 Pro. Then I left those all charging and checked in periodically on temperatures and sound. And cutting right to the chase, even after a full hour of charging all those devices, this thing still barely cracked 90 degrees Fahrenheit at its hottest points. The previous two tests that I ran that were similar, one for a Satechi 200-watt charger and one for an Anker 100-watt model, both cruised past 90 degrees in 15 minutes and 10 minutes respectively. Even so, calling this 90 degrees at an hour isn't fully fair, because there's really one real hotspot that develops on the back top of the device, where there must be some internal components that cause a slightly higher temperature than the rest of the body. Comparatively, the average temperature around the rest of the device was firmly in the mid-80s and was barely warm to the touch. It was honestly remarkable. Sound was also impressive. Typically when you're dealing with this much power, you get some slight buzzing or a coil whine type of sound. If you've ever heard an electric car engine make that little whine, you kind of get the idea. On this UGREEN model, nothing. Nothing was audible unless I literally pressed my ear to the side of the device to try to seek it out. These test results were really impressive. In addition to those positive results, there are a myriad of safety measures taken by UGREEN, including overcurrent protection, overvoltage protections, and a whole bunch more. There's 11 types of safety protection total. Now, at this point, I think we've firmly established that this charger is as advertised. It's incredibly powerful and seemingly quite efficient as well. But you might have been wondering, since the beginning really, exactly why on earth do you need this much power? Here's a couple of ideas. First, it can replace a power strip with a ton of power adapters. This allows you to simplify your setup and gets rid of the need for a bunch of separate power adapters that can be way more complicated to manage. Second is office work. If you have a team working in a centralized place, it's really common for everyone to have their own dedicated laptop charger and to need power strips to get everyone hooked in. With this, you can have one simple power solution with USB-C cables for each person's computer. I spent years of my life working in audit rooms and conference rooms where teams of people would be huddled around the same table working. This would be absolutely perfect for that. Third is a family charging hub. If you've got a large family, you've inevitably got a ton of devices that need charging. Put this in a central spot with some cables and maybe a few wireless phone chargers. I've got reviews on a bunch if you want some inspiration, and you've got everyone covered. We're now even seeing e-bikes moving over to USB-C, so you could charge up a family bike fleet from one power source. Finally, my fourth idea is studio power for content creation or streaming. In my line of work, you have a lot of things that need to remain charged, from camera batteries to microphones to all the products that I'm constantly reviewing. While not all of those require as much power as this thing can offer, we're moving in a direction where even super high-powered devices in a studio setting are beginning to accept USB-C power. For example, the new Amaran Verge Max Lite pulls 60 watts and is fully USB-C powered. As more devices move in this direction, power hubs like this will be a great solution for areas where you're going to have lots of high-draw equipment in close proximity that can use USB-C. Is there a use case that I missed that you want this for? If so, let me know in the comments. I'm super curious what other people are going to use something like this for. All right, now let's talk pricing. This new UGREEN 500-watt charger retails for $250, which is both a lot of money and also a really good deal. Let me explain. First, for some context, here are a few other models of high wattage chargers to see some price comparisons. This new model is $50 more than UGREEN's prior 300-watt model, which is right in line with where I'd expect it to be just based on that alone. Still, $250 for a place to plug in your electronics may sound absolutely crazy to you, but it really all depends on your use cases. As I mentioned at the outset, this is a world's first. You're not going to find this much capacity elsewhere today, and if you do, it either won't have that 240-watt single-port output that this one has, or it'll be missing the reputable brand name behind it like UGREEN. You don't really want to mess around with unknown brands when you're dealing with this much power. Also, if you decide that you're going to recreate this yourself and start purchasing several other high-power adapters, trying to get up to 500 watts total, you'll pretty quickly realize that they can add up in price pretty quickly. Anker has a 140-watt power adapter. Maybe you'll look at that one. That's $100. Apple's version of also a 140-watt adapter, still $100. So you'll very quickly get up to $250 or more and probably have less power, less ports, or both. So while for some it's still absolutely crazy, For others, this is actually a solid deal. Now, to recap the differentiators and deal breakers, first is that maximum 500 watts of power that this thing can output. If you need more than this, then you probably have some pretty unique power requirements. Next is the 240 watt port, which is capable of the maximum amount of power supported by the current Power Delivery 3.1 spec and doesn't go down as you add any more devices, which is pretty awesome. There are 6 dedicated GaN chips, which for context is 4 more than what's in UGREEN's 300 watt model. My testing showed that this charger is incredibly efficient, generating very little heat over extended use, though do bear in mind that I don't have any super high-tech tools that some other channels might use to go more in-depth with power output testing. Finally, there is a USB-A port, which could be perfect for that one older device that you still have that needs it. For potential deal breakers, this thing is big and heavy, like really big and heavy. It requires all the devices you charge to be in one specific place. So even though it may save you money over buying a ton of individual high output power adapters, it requires centralization without having the flexibility to place chargers around your office or your house. Finally, it's expensive, though as I've explained, it could be a deal depending on how you look at it. At the end of the day, if you need a lot of devices charged in one place, you can't really do much better than this. There's affiliate links in the video description if you decide that you're interested, and you can click here to see a video on another pretty incredible UGREEN product, their new Thunderbolt 5 dock. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.